Good evening, Hampstead. Tonight is November 22nd, 2022 at approximately 7:02 p.m. Calling to order the regular meeting. Melissa, could you please take the roll call?
Sure. Carl Hubner.
Here.
David Smith.
Here.
Jason Giard.
Here.
Erin Pellegrini.
Here.
And we also have Megan Malcolm attending via teleconference. Megan Malcolm, can you hear me?
Yep, I'm here, and there's no one else in the room with me.
Thank you. And Pinkerton Student Liaison, Shannon Caffell.
Here.
And also seated at the board table is Superintendent of Schools, Bob Thompson, and CFO, Jeff Dowd.
All right. Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
Going to ask everybody to stand for the pledge, and maybe Mr. Thompson can lead us.
Oh my God.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. Board members, you have a set of meeting minutes from November 8th, regular meeting that we're looking to have approved. You want to take a minute to read it over. And Megan, as you know, you did get emailed this from Melissa earlier today.
Yeah.
I will go ahead and make a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes from November 8th, 2022.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Melissa, can you take the roll call?
Sure. Mr. Giard,
Yes.
Dr. Hubner,
Yes.
Ms. Malcolm,
Yes.
Mrs. Pellegrini,
Yes.
and Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
All right. Thank you. Any public comments?
There are none tonight.
All right. Thank you. All right. And then we're going to turn this over to Shannon Caffell to give some Pinkerton Academy School highlights.
All right. The winter play this year is Clue the Mystery Musical. It will be playing in the Stockbridge Theater December 2nd through the 4th. I've heard it's very exciting and it's awesome this year. The Career Awareness Fair is taking place on Thursday, December 8th in the senior cafeteria in the Stockbridge Theater. Students and parents will have the opportunity to learn about the program and discover career paths. Saturday, December 10th is the sophomore semi-formal. Tickets sold out insanely fast this year. It was crazy. A few weeks back, the junior varsity cheer team won their state championship. The Astros took a tough loss this past weekend to Londonderry, ending our football season, but hey, we made it to the semifinals. Winter sport tryouts begin on November 28th. Good luck to anyone trying out. Can't wait to show some support with the Astro machine. And that's all I have. But have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Shannon. Appreciate the info. Board members, any questions for Shannon?
Do not.
Hope you and your family have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right. Next up, current business, HCS renovation plan design discussion. So between Bob Thompson and myself, we'll talk about this. So there's not too much more to update at this moment. A couple things to probably turn over to Ms. Thompson to talk about from the building committee. Other than for board members, we do expect to have pricing in the next 24 hours, which once we get, we'll be reviewing. Of course, you'll be informed of what that looks like. I'll just lead in with the building committee. We do plan on meeting next week to start talking about that, to bring recommendations back to the board as far as anything that we think we should be looking to cut out, change, et cetera. But speaking of the building committee, Mr. Thompson?
Yeah, so the HCS Building Committee met this evening. The purpose of our meeting was to review a draft communication plan. Basically, we're looking for ways to get the word out about the new renovation project. And again, the focus being on what we're calling the 3 S's. That's security, that is special education, and it's student learning. So tonight we had some discussions about providing material and information at not only school events that are coming up, but also town events as well. And any community member that's going to attend a town event, you may see information about the renovation project. And again, we are set to receive pricing tomorrow, and the building committee will review that pricing along with the board. There'll be further discussions about what the project will look like moving forward. So I would also encourage folks to go to the renovation, the building renovation website. There's a ton of information there if you want to look at the floor plan, you want to look at the elevations. There's several presentations, including a recent presentation that both myself and Mr. Smith gave at last week's select board meeting. So all the information is on the website. We're happy to have conversation with folks if they have questions, and we're pretty excited because tomorrow really is the next phase, right? We get the pricing and then we can develop a final plan moving forward.
All right. Board members, any questions right now for this? All right. I think it's worth mentioning, I mean, we did have a good meeting at the select board discussing the plan. A lot of good questions from the Board of Selectmen around what it is that we're doing and about the plan, and asking about what it is, the deficiencies that we, are fixing with this plan. There was a lot of discussion around special education, of course, and a few questions about the security. So definitely good engagement from the select board with, again, good communication discussions. Even after that meeting, I had a few people reach out that, have watched that meeting, not this meeting, and started hearing about what this renovation plan is. So it's definitely good to get out there. So we do plan on going out to the select board more often. It won't be every time they meet, but at least once or twice more between now and we go forward with the vote. So again, when we meet back on the second Tuesday of December, we do plan on coming with, what is that pricing? It could be close to finalized pricing because, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we will talk about what is that pricing that we're getting for tomorrow, and then reducing cost. So that will be, again, a lot more detail. So plan on a pretty lengthy meeting, that first meeting in December. So that's all I got. All right. Next one is around the 2023 bond article discussion. Mr. Dowd, you're going to give an update on the bond information that we would go forward with as far as bond rates, et cetera.
Bond rates have increased substantially since the last go-round, and we are looking to have a bond match to our final pricing once we have that in, which should be tomorrow. But we were looking at significantly higher bond rates than we were in the past. We had been in the past. So the impact is going to be, I think, substantial on the project, not on the project cost, but on the cost of the town to service the debt. So looking at 5-year, 10-year, 15-year options. I don't think the board's interested in 20.
No. Do you have any preliminary numbers right now that at least you can communicate?
I do. Let me get them for you. Hold on. For once, they won't come up. Oh my gosh. So we're looking for 5-year at 4 3/4%, 10-year 5%, 15-year 5 1/4. I'd like to say it's likely that actual rates would come in lower, but the market's still in flux. So
Right.
these are conservative.
Right, because in past years, we've been quoted like about a half a point to 3/4 point above what they actually came in at if we had gone at that time.
Correct.
So, got it. All right.
Correct.
So if I hear that again, just want to make sure, 5-year at about 4 3/4, 10 years at 5, 15 at 5 1/4.
Correct.
All right.
That's exactly it. And 5 is 20 years, 5.5.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think, what I'd ask, and I think this makes sense for the board, is that for the meeting that we have on the first meeting in December, that whatever price we're coming in at, let's price this out accordingly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the only key that we're missing right now is just the final pricing. So.
Right. Okay. Board members, any questions to Mr. Dowd on that? All right. Thank you, Mr. Dowd. Next one, the financial audit reporting. Mr. Dowd, you're going to give an update?
Yes. So we have a draft of the 2020 report, and the superintendent is taking a look at it. Nothing terribly exciting. We're still going back and forth. I have a management discussion and analysis that gets put in that I create based on the draft report, and just a couple other things to tidy up. But the draft report itself is in my possession, and we have the audit team coming out on Monday the 28th to start on the 21 audit. So things are moving on as scheduled.
Okay. The draft audit, anything that the board should be aware of, any deficiencies, anything that's called out?
Nope, the only thing that's called out is should have gotten it done earlier. That's all. So not a finding or anything, not a finding per se, but just that they had unrestricted access to our books. No problem there. Full cooperation, but it should have been. It would be good to get it done earlier.
Right.
Be more responsive to them.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, and we will continue to have the fixed asset, the adverse opinion relating to fixed assets, which is not unexpected, I don't think.
So understood on, should have had it done sooner. We've talked about that a couple
Yep.
times now. And then as far as the fixed assets, this goes back to like pricing out what is the school worth, correct?
Correct, from 1920-ish.
So we can't be the only school that has this. So how do they give recommendations so that this is something that's?
So other districts don't have the burden that we have. And so, for example, another local school district had their SAU formed, their school district formed in the 1960s. So they only had to go back to the 60s to get that information. For us, it's going back to the 1920s, going through and scouring every annual report, every vote to see when capital had been put in. It's a little bit of an exercise in futility because we may have only paid, for example, $3,000 for the land where the central school is right now. And I carry that forward, right? So that land is going to show on our books at $3,000. I don't mark to market. I don't mark that up to reflect market value. So it's quite an exercise. So I'd like to get the audits caught up, at least the current years in place, and if that's something that we can do. Bob and I have talked about it. We can also bring in MRI resources to help do some research on that, to bring that all up to snuff. And I'll just describe one. And we'll take the school for example. We have to go in and follow the warrant and the vote of the community to identify the acquisition of the land, and then to identify how much the building cost or how much it was approved for, and then if we did any additions or work after that, how much that was. If we replaced a main air conditioning unit, what the cost of that was. And
Okay.
the ironic thing is that anything aside from land gets depreciated on the books. So this school building, if it was built in the late 70s, is fully depreciated. So I've got to put it on the books at whatever we paid for it, maybe a couple $100,000 or whatever it was at the time.
So
And then
what
it
I'd-
gets fully depreciated and shows a zero on our books today.
What I'd like is, ask of the board, is that when they come in for this 2021 audit, I think we should have the discussion with the auditors on this, just to figure out, get this off of, findings for the future. I think that'll make the most sense, because they keep on putting it on there. Let's just figure out how are other districts doing it, and if it's worth us doing. We shouldn't, it's not like we're selling off the building, so not anything that we really have to worry about, but talk to the auditors when they're here and get more information from them.
I think the tough thing about this is that if you had, or you were in a district, one of the reasons they want to have that number of those fixed assets on the books is to give a better idea, a better picture of where the district is in terms of its long-term liabilities and its current position overall. But in our district, we're not in as good of a position as other districts to show that value on the books. And I'll just give an example, Salem, for example. Salem is doing a $35 million project here, a $35 million project there. They're doing a big project every year. And so when you look at their balance sheet, they're going to show that undepreciated, because it hasn't depreciated yet. You're going to see some value on their books for it. In our case, you'll see $2 million that we spent over at the central school on the books probably is the most current item. And beyond that, land value is going to be relatively low because we've owned the land for so long. We haven't really built any new buildings. It is good to have. It's just a thing to have. We get dinged on it because the auditors feel that that's a true measure of an offset to our liabilities, to our long-term liabilities. But at the end of the day, it's just not going to be a very productive or fruitful show on our balance sheet. Because again, the only things we're going to have on there are land for both locations, and our buildings would be nearly fully depreciated except for $2 million over at the central school. So,
And I would just add, David, I think to your point, we can come back with a timeline for, the final report is due any day for the 2020. 2021 audit starts on when we get back from Thanksgiving break, when the process of scheduling 21, where the dealing with those fixed assets comes into that timeline, so that we can come back and say, we'll get it done by this day.
Right.
Because it's certainly a priority.
Yep.
yeah, and I think it's a question of making sure that we're accurate on it as well, how much we get on there. So I'd like to get rid of the finding because, quite frankly, it doesn't. The problem is that audit doesn't really know. Like, they'd like to show it as an offset to our long-term liabilities. Well, they don't really know whether it's 10 million, 100 million. They know it's not 100 million.
And even more important, the 2021 audit, this took us a year and a half plus to get this one done for 2020. So 2021, what is that calendar, to your point?
Yep.
What is the timing to close this? Should not be going on this long.
Yep, that's true.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Dowd?
Not on that, no.
Okay. All right, tax rate setting. Mr. Dowd?
So the town, the Board of Selectmen, actually at the meeting that you were at, I believe, set their tax rate. And I just wanted to point out that for this year, our individual rate here, our school rate is lower than it had been in the past. Since the time that they set the tax rate at the meeting that you were at, they also had another review of it. I think they had to add some valuation to their books. I think it had something to do with maybe the Hampstead Hospital being left off. At the end of the day, it looks pretty good. Our 21 rate, I don't know if I can show this well up on the screen, but I'll try. So comparison there right behind you. I've included the tax rate for both years, and I'm just going to go up here so you can see that we're on the 2022. And you can see our local education rate is right there at 1662. You can see the state portion is 136 right there for a total school tax rate of 1798. I'm going to go down and you can see the 2021, we have the 1714 for the local rate and 189 for the state education rate. I put a little summary together and added that. This is mine. This is not part of the official state filing on that. So our tax rate in the current year is $1.05 favorable compared to where it was a year ago, and that's about 5.52%. I'm pretty pleased with that. I think the board's done a good job with the budget. We've been able to show some value here in the education that we're able to deliver and reducing, obviously, the tax burden on the town. I think our overall tax rate is up just under $1, but that's not from the school portion. The school portion's down $1. So just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Well, it's definitely good news. There's been a lot of work done by this administration and staff, board members, so definitely appreciate it and to bring this to light.
And I do hear the old, adage that taxes never go down. Just write it down. They did go down. They did go down.
Yeah.
So
that's good to know. Appreciate that, bringing light. Any questions from the board members? We're good. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dowd.
Hmm?
All right. just going to keep on with the Mr. Dowd show right now.
Oh,
We're
see.
going to go over to Mr. Dowd for the 2023-2024 budget discussion.
Right. So I have a very brief presentation for you. I wasn't anticipating, I think we had another agenda item that may have gotten moved, so I wasn't necessarily anticipating a more in-depth discussion tonight on that. However, I'm going to show everyone how to get to our information for the budget, and I'm at our main website, School Board, Warrant and Budget, and then just click 24 Warrant and Budget. You'll come up with our current year postings from our previous school board meetings, the Board of Selectmen posting as well. And I'm going to review our budget summary presentation. And so that's out there now. That's available for the public. There it is. And I'm just going to bring it up in a cleaner form right there. So is that right? Let me see. Nope, it's the wrong one. Sorry. I will use the one on the screen. So we have our budget numbers are relatively finalized. This is a brief presentation. You've seen the budget process. You know what our budget process is. I've left this on the slide so that the public is aware of how to access our budget. We go through a zero-based budgeting process. We've had our principals, directors go through their work in September. Superintendent and I have reviewed it. School and departments presented to you on the 25th of October. Total budget presented today, really, in aggregate. So overarching goals, you all know this. Bob has mentioned this, and I think this is what we've put together as part of your goals, right? And we're going to ensure financial commitment to the values and priorities identified in the strategic plan. We're going to keep our educational facilities in good working order. We're going to ensure robust information technology systems that support and strengthen our instructional, and operational capabilities. And we're going to be good financial stewards for the taxpayers. So we've had a couple changes since we last met on the department budgets. Hsd Central, now this is versus the current year budget. So the budget that we're requesting versus the current year. The proposed requested budget is up $39,000 at Central School, which I believe you had seen as part of the budget presentation. Middle school is down $11,662 compared to the current year. Student services is up $345,798 versus the current year. Technology is down $24,000 versus the current year. Facilities is up $9,000 versus the current year. This is a brief summary of our enrollments all on one page, so you can see where our enrollments are now and where we're projected to be in 2024. The initial presentation on the 25th, which is available on the website, did have an articulation of Central School by grade, Middle School by grade, Pinkerton by grade. So this is just a general broad overview summary. The budget estimate where we are right now, and I'd consider this to be draft one, hasn't been approved by the board, looking at a voted budget of $32,189,000 in the current year, and we're looking at a preliminary budget in proposed budget of $32,821,710. So that's an increase of $632,000 to $176, or 1.96%. So those are the high-level figures for your review. And I'll ask, we have a detailed budget report as well in your package, where you can see it's all in one page. It's all in one packet. If you have questions on that specifically, we can chat and discuss that. We are also going to have a more robust discussion on this at your December board meeting.
And this number, Jeff, that we're seeing here does not include what we are negotiating currently.
Correct.
This is including what it would be at flat.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. So, and I'll go through some. In fact, I should probably do that now. Well, let's go over where we were last year, just so that we know. You had seen the tax rate, the impact. The unassigned fund balance that we were able to return to the town was $2,233,526. We've discussed this, but these are the high points, if you will. This is broken up two ways. One is a revenue surplus of $915,000, and the other is an expense surplus of $2.2 million. So that means that we brought in $915,000 more in revenue than we anticipated, and we spent $2.2 million less. So you can see the different categories. Special ed aid, we received $479,000 more than anticipated. Health trust refund of $244,000. We received proceeds from the SAU 55 wind down of $147,000, and we received tuitions in excess of budget of $55,558. On the expense side, we saved $831,000 on outside tuitions. Salaries, we saved $478,490. Insurance, FICA, et cetera, we saved $477,855. And in building and sites, we saved $155,465. So that's a breakdown of when we closed out the 22 year, how we ended up with the surplus that we did. Wait, you're saying we had a revenue surplus of $915,000 and we had an expense surplus of $2,205,000. How do we only give back $2.2 million? And we had the voted budget included $550,000 for the capital reserve. We had a fund balance retention that increased, and those two alone contributed to the difference between the 915 and the 2.2. Sorry, the 915 and the 2.2 compared to what we actually gave back to the town. So that's that. I would like to chat about Pinkerton as well. I have those final numbers in. So I'm going to switch off here for a second and bring that up. So Pinkerton's rate, we were anticipating 10%, came in the 8% range, which was a little bit higher than we would like to see. Their operating budget was up a little over 5%. So the rest, why we're paying 8%, is because we have there was a fewer anticipated enrollments. So even though their budget went up 5%, we're experiencing an 8% increase because there's fewer head counts to spread that over.
Do we have the numbers as far as the head counts of total for Pinkerton right now? That how much it went down?
Well, I have projected. So I can they are anticipating fewer students. So if you give me a moment, I'll pull that up. On an up note, we did experience some decreases in our special ed services, student services programs there. So I'll discuss that as well. So we have I can't seem to find it. Hold on now. Do you have it, Bob?
Yep, let me send it to you.
Can I just take it off your computer?
Yep, oops, sorry.
I printed it and forgot to take it with me.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So the increase is, their total budget increase is 5.7% from the current budget. The anticipated enrollment is 2,898, so 2,898 students. Current enrollment is 2,967. So it's not a lot, but it's enough to contribute to.
So is that 100 less-ish?
69.
Yeah, 69. So it's not a huge gap, but it's enough.
I think it's something we're going to want to talk about at the next meeting with Pinkerton, as it seems that their enrollments have declined year over year for a few years. Just wondering what they're doing to.
And our enrollment next year is going up.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is tough because we're not contributing to that decline. But so what they've done, what Pinkerton has done, is reduced 4 positions and added 1. They've had a salary line increase of 3.2%, health insurance increase of approximately 13%, dental insurance increase of 6%, natural gas expense increase of approximately 54%, electricity increase of 14%. So maybe we should get them in on our bid for natural gas and see if we can get that 54% down, because we actually saved some money this year over last year.
Okay.
And Chairman Smith, if the board would like, I could reach out to Dr. Powers to see if he has availability to attend a future meeting.
I think that would make sense.
Yep.
So on some better news, we have a couple different programs. We have our general education tuition. We have a resource program that we utilize, PASSES program, and an ACT program, ACT program. The general we talked about, that is an increase for us, for all of our students, and that's the base rate that we pay for all of our students who go there. The resource budget is increased 6.19%. However, the PASSES budget is down 9.79%. And the ACT budget is increased as well. So it's not really, we're getting hit with these reductions in enrollment.
Okay.
Yeah. When they do have a true-up, so if their enrollment exceeds their projected enrollment estimates, we have in the past received a credit back at the end of the year.
Right.
You know.
I think that it would be interesting to see what are the forecasted enrollments at Pinkerton, knowing we're all using NASDAQ, so we all try to see what it looks like. So I think it'd be good to see what Pinkerton's is overall from all the sending towns. And then, you know, I think that Hampstead's one of the only ones that has a projected enrollment going up in the state of New Hampshire. But, you know, but it'd be good to see what is Pinkerton's and what are their plans, you know, so.
I think they have the benefit of having 8 years of enrollment history for their sending towns.
Right.
And we provide that information to them annually
Right. Yep.
for Hampstead.
Right. Okay.
I have a question that I don't know if you can answer, but I figure I'd ask it anyway. So do we have any idea how the returned money to the town has impacted our tax rate? So we returned 2 million
Yep.
plus. Do we know, like, have any idea how that has impacted what the taxpayers are paying? I kind of ask that because I'm curious, but
Yep.
also because I think that would give us a little bit of information to think about when we're looking at what we might want to put into ask for capital reserve going forward.
Yep. So I think that has a lot to do with the reduced tax rate, but that's a significant clip that we're down 5%.
Okay.
So part of it is state aid, but part of it is, as you saw, we received a lot of direct revenue that we had not budgeted, and so that's very helpful as well. I can take a look, play with the figures a little bit, and just see what the actual
Yeah, I was just
impact
curious.
is.
I just want to know, like, is it actually impactful? Like, you know, and obviously it's $2 million, I'm sure it is, but, you know, as opposed to, you know, getting $500,000 back, or, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just curious what exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes those monies, because it's such a big budget, it doesn't seem like very much, but, so I'm just kind of curious what,
Well, and bear in mind that
if that even makes sense.
no, it does. And bear in mind that our budget might be in the $30 million range, but our burden to the town is in the 20s, 20 million or so. So when you figure 2 million, it's not 2 million out of 30, it's 2 million out of whatever our ask is from the town directly. That's really what it comes down to.
Right, yep.
We did receive some additional adequacy aid as well for the year upcoming, and I think that's helped to offset it. But the 2 million on 30 is really not the way to look at it. It's really the 2 million on what our ask is from the town, what the town has to, what our burden is, what our tax burden is to the local taxpayers. So I can take a look and see if I can better articulate what that might be.
Okay, yeah. I
Yeah.
was just curious to see what that shakes out to be, you know, just to see
Yeah.
how it might be, how what we're doing and being able to refund that is actually impacting people, I guess is kind of where I'm getting at.
Yeah, and the other thing too is a lot of times you can play with tax rates a little bit when you do a revaluation on the town. And we had one a number of years ago, and I feel like our overall valuation was in like the $1 billion range. And after that valuation, I felt like it was in the $1.3 billion range. So automatically you're spreading that out over more money, which makes it a lower tax rate. That wasn't the case this year. We did have an increase. It went from $1,339 to $1,354, but that's not the type of thing that typically jars the tax rate that much.
Right,
You
okay.
know, it's really not, that wasn't really a factor, I don't think here. It's a factor, but it's not primarily. So in our tax effort, for example, is really what we want to be looking at. And I can actually just show you real quick. Pull it up and then put it up on the screen for you. So if you see right here, that tax effort piece, right there, and right there, and this is the state, the 1.8 million is really what the state tells us they're going to contribute. But if you look at those numbers, that's really that's what our ask is, that's what our needs are. And then if you look at the prior year, 22,967 versus 2,512 from state education. There was a little bit of a shuffle between state education tax and the adequacy aid that we received. So you'll see that is a higher number last year. It's a lower number this year, but we're receiving more aid. So you can kind of see how it helps, but it's really on that 24 million or so.
Okay.
Now, is the reason the state education has gone down, is some of that to do with the fact that there's been downshifting from state to local?
I'd like to say that is the case, but that's really not. They
Okay.
played with they played with the formula for adequacy aid, essentially.
Okay.
And it's gotten to a point now. Bob has been in my office. I just to print it off to try and look at it. I mean, it's like this. It's not like a print on landscape. It's like print and piece it together. It's just such a large analysis and formula that they use, and so it's a little bit of a shell game where their state tax might be less, and they'll just give more in adequacy aid. But at the end of the day, the state education portion, it's something of a misnomer because it's all local.
It's all funded.
It's all funded locally.
It goes to them and comes right back, right?
Right.
Doesn't
Effectively.
even leave.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Really
leave.
doesn't
Yeah.
even leave.
It technically leaves on the books, but yeah, it never actually leaves.
It never actually leaves.
Yeah.
So increasing adequacy aid is direct funding from the state.
Okay.
So while I would like to say that the state is downshifting costs, they've actually come through a bit here in increasing that adequacy aid from the state level.
Assuming the adequacy aid continues to stay.
And there have been a couple of different phase-outs that they're doing as part of adequacy aid, generally speaking. So when they've reduced the state education portion, they may make it up on the adequacy aid side, but that typically phases out over time.
Yeah.
There was also an increase with the introduction of the educational freedom accounts to kind of offset, so that wouldn't have a large impact on districts, and that is going to fade as well. So that will have an impact on.
And the cap for that is coming off this year?
That will be in the state legislature for consideration.
Okay.
There are several LSRs in Concord for education this go-around, as it was last time. Many of them are in regards to the educational freedom accounts and making adjustments to those accounts.
Okay. I thought that it was sunsetted already, like the cap was going to sunset this year, so that there would be no cap this year, but
Yeah, not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
but I can certainly look into that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can look again too.
Yeah.
I may be wrong.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that it really is, and the state portion, it's paid by the local taxpayers. I will say this is really one of the first years that I'm really happy to see that the state is being able to contribute more as well.
Okay.
Generally speaking, we don't really see that very often, and it's a shame. And I'm very, very pleased with it.
It's the nature of New Hampshire funding for education.
Yeah.
All right, so to recap, to come back here to the budget discussion, right now we're looking at around 2%.
Just under.
But that's without any of the discussions on, what the negotiations will be with the contracts.
Correct.
So that's just flat to what the last contract was,
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Or the current contract, current year
Or
contract.
current contract that we're on,
Yep.
correct, okay. And for the voter, for everybody at home, when we meet mid-December at our next board meeting is where we really pull it all together and start to outline what will be on the warrant articles. So a lot of that discussion, that's why I say get ready for next Tuesday, that next board meeting. Clear your calendar, it's probably gonna be a late night because there's a lot to talk about that night. where?
You've got it on your agenda, though, to have an early start on that tonight.
Say again?
You've got it on your agenda to have an early start on that tonight.
Correct.
So we'll take a deep dive into the budget at the next meeting,
Correct.
but you can take a look at the warrant, and hopefully that'll help facilitate the meeting in December.
Yep. Okay. All right. Any other questions on budget? All right. Next one, just a quick update here on the union negotiations. So we have, I'd say, near completed our negotiations. There are, some tidying up that has to be done. I want to say thank you to board members, administration, the various union contacts who have been part of these discussions over the last 2-3 months. While it's too early to say what it is that is being moved forward, we will have that information at the first meeting in December as we look to get it ratified and voted upon by board members in moving forward with the warrant articles. But, I'd say a lot of good work, a lot of good discussions, lengthy discussions. Pretty proud of the board as, there's a lot that went into it this year, with new board members that have been part of this negotiations. So thank you to all, including HEA and Hsd, for coming to the table and coming to agreements. Board members, I don't know if there's anything you'd want to speak to right now on this. All right. Next one. All right, draft warrant articles review. So let me pull together a few things here. Are we going to bring this up on the screen, Mr. Thompson, or are we just going to speak to this one? Do you forget? Overall, first I'll talk about, in the coming months what's happening, and then I'll go into the, kind of the draft warrant articles here. So again, in the new year, we do have a number of dates that we'll be looking to hit. I'm going to go through a few of these deadlines that are coming up. Friday, Tuesday, January 3rd, we will be posting the public notice of the school board budget and bond hearings. We'll publish those in newspapers in general circulation by the second Tuesday in January. Must be 7 days in advance. Then Friday, January 6th, 2023, there's a citizens petition. Bond articles must be submitted by. Tuesday, January 10th, supervisor checklist posts the checklist. Tuesday, January 10th, all other citizens petitions articles must be submitted. Also, Tuesday, January 10th, deadline for finalization of cost items for the CBAs to be presented at the annual meeting. Again, Tuesday, January 10th, a lot going on that day. We have our public hearing on the bond issue and a public hearing on the proposed budget. That'll be here at the middle school on January 10th. Snow date would be January 11th. It must be done on or before the third Tuesday in January. Moving down, I'm going to go into, scrolling down. We will skip right to February 7th is when we have our deliberative session 1. That again will be here at the middle school, Tuesday, February 7th. Then as we get into the voting, voting is on March 14th, Tuesday, March 14th, for the district voting here at the middle school. And that's pretty much what we're outlining for the next few months. Before I get in the draft warrant articles, any questions from board members on the dates? Looking forward to voting on March 14th. So, all right. So, board members, in your packets, we do have what would be the draft warrant articles. We will go over those in a little bit more detail. We could take action on certain proposed warrant articles, such as capital reserve, or we can defer that voting until the December board meeting. I think it probably makes more sense, in my opinion, is to walk through and talk about these, have some discussion. If anybody wants to do a vote tonight, we certainly can.
I think it would be better to do the vote the next meeting, hoping that Megan would be here at that time. Make sure we can have full discussion and have her included.
Yep, I think that's a good proposition, Mr. Giard. So I'm going to go through the warrant articles again. We do have a number of these that we've talked about, a number of them we haven't talked about either. So Article 1 is on the election of officers. And it's behind me? It is. Thank you. We do have 2 3-year terms up at that point. So looking forward to seeing who throws their name in the hat for this, who decides to continue, or new members. Article 2 on the bond issue for the Hampstead Central School renovation project. We do not have the total dollars. As we said, we should get that tomorrow, and then we'll discuss over the next few weeks informally, getting to know what's there, take out some cost items as appropriate, and vote on that for the meeting on the whatever date that is, the second Tuesday in December. Next one is on the operating budget. We've heard what it tentatively is. So again, board members, you have it in front of you if there's any questions of what the wording, but it's pretty standard wording here around that operating budget. We're looking, as Mr. Dowd said, around that 2%. We then have the 2 collective bargaining agreements that will be broken up into year 1, 2, and 3 cost to the voters. So again, I don't know if anybody has any discussions, any thoughts there, anything you want to bring up. Let's see. Next one is authorization for special meeting on cost items. Again, pretty standard wording that we usually have there. Capital Reserve Fund, we have not talked about yet, about what we might want to go into. I would like to talk about this a little bit, I think, tonight, just to get board members' opinions and thoughts and some discussion ahead of the meeting in December, where everybody's heads are at. As a reminder, last year, again, I'll talk a little bit about the Article 7 of what it is, and then talk about what we've done over the last few years. And for those at home, the Capital Reserve Fund, we start off with $150,000 that's in surplus, gets automatically returned to the town and to the voters, to the community. And then us as board members vote on, in excess of that $150,000, what do we want to do if there is such surplus? This year, we returned just over $2 million. And that's after that $500,000 that we voted to keep in capital reserve. So we did a pretty good job of being financial stewards in the last budget cycle. And I'd say every year, over the last few years, if we look at it, we have steadily increased this to help pay for renovations, et cetera. So at this time, that's kind of the history lesson there. But if there's any questions, any thoughts, anybody have any for what you're thinking about for this year that you'd want us to consider before we come to vote in December?
What do we currently have in the Capital Reserve Fund?
We exhausted much of it, so we're on 700,000, I want to say, with the 500 in it.
Okay.
Okay, David,
Yes, Megan?
can you repeat what Jeff said, his
Yep.
reply?
Yep. So you heard Carl's question about what's in it now, and then so Jeff's reply was somewhere north of $700,000 in the capital
Okay.
reserve as it stands today.
Okay, thank you.
So one thing that would be helpful for the board to consider is that if you have a bond going on the warrant, is there any consideration to an offset of capital reserve if that should go through?
I was going to ask that question, like, could we put an amount in there, but then because I was thinking, like, if we could put an amount in there that's maybe higher, but if assuming that the renovation would go through, but if the renovation didn't go through, change, like, have a,
Like, yeah, you have an
If
if,
this,
you have an
right.
if then and,
right.
yeah. Yeah.
I did not explain that well at all, but
No, it made sense.
I feel like you
No.
did that a few years ago with the 60s wing renovation. If it went through, then the money from or maybe you didn't have that capital reserve on there at all.
there was something about that. I do recall that I
Yeah,
forget
well, yeah, there was an
exactly what-
if then, if the whole thing passed, then we wouldn't do the 60s renovation. I think we can build it in.
So you're thinking right now doing some sort of if-then statement for the vote that says, like, if it passes, then we'll do this, and if it
Right.
doesn't, then we'll do this?
Right,
Okay. We'll have to probably get councils,
yeah.
you know.
That's my thought, because if Because if the renovation doesn't go through, then we really need to be building that up. But if the renovation passes, then we might be able to kind of stay a little status quo to kind of offset some of that, or what gets returned. It's my thought, anyway.
I'm not sure that your first-year debt service is going to be in the $500,000 range. Whereas with the 60s wing renovations, that was all out of pocket. So if we didn't have 500,000 going into the capital reserve, that 500,000 went to offset the cost of the project. The only cost that you would have potentially with a bigger renovation would be that first year of debt service, unless you wanted to have that 500,000 go to knock down the price of the bond. So if let's just say the price is out at 7.5, then you
Right.
get a bond for 7 if that went through.
That's
But then
an
you've
option.
Yeah, then you've got to consider though there's that first year debt service cost that's on there as well.
My thoughts on this, and again, this is probably a little bit kind of different thinking on this, is I'm going to go when it passes, that any money that we have in our capital reserve, I think would be useful to pay down the debt. So again, $750,000, my recommendation would be to use most of that against the proposed, for the renovation. So if our renovation comes in at $7.5 million, well, that $750,000 is used towards that. So that drains our capital reserve down to nothing. And my recommendation would be to, on this capital reserve warrant article, is anything above the 150 we put into capital reserve.
Well, that was
And
kind of, sorry.
And the reason why that is because in my mind is we gotta grow that capital reserve back up quickly in case the septic fails, because we're not gonna be having that septic changed, but we need to make sure we're having enough to, in case and when it does, if it does.
Yeah.
But also, we may decide to then allocate that, whatever is approved by the voters for this capital reserve, to also bring down the renovation budget. So I just think that it would be worth it, because if the renovation doesn't pass, we're starting to get into quite the bind over at Central School. So I think no matter what, we need to do something with our capital reserve to build in some space, even if it's one classroom a year. I mean, we got to start doing something there. So if it doesn't pass, we have that $750,000. And if we vote something on our capital reserve that says anything over $150,000 goes towards capital reserve, because then we might have enough to build a classroom or two just on its own, without having to go to vote for those classrooms.
That's kind of why I was asking, sorry, I'm a little, some issues going on over here. That's kind of why I was asking about what the impact was of that 2 million, what that was actually impacting to the town, as far as the tax rate.
Right. Because, just in that, let's go to imagination land. If last year we would have said anything over 150,000 goes to capital reserve, well, we'd have that 750,000 that we have now, plus 2 million. So we'd have $2.75 million. We could do a couple classrooms probably, I'm guessing, So I think we need to start getting pretty aggressive with this in case it doesn't pass. So that's where my mind is at. I don't know if it's, I don't know what the total dollars I'm suggesting yet, but I think that we need to start getting aggressive in case, it does not pass, because we are quickly finding that space that we didn't buy, that we didn't fund 12 years ago when kindergarten went in there, we can't recover with what we have right now. So.
I like the idea, as long as we have enough in the capital reserve to do the leach field if it happens. Like, we're hoping it's not happening and we have a good report on that, but I don't know.
Well, that's why, right, and that's why I'm saying that if, when we pass it, I would think that we want to use a lot of our capital reserve towards the renovation, and then,
Yeah.
Allocate this capital reserve fund to start building back up to cover, like the septic, and or to even offset the renovation even more than that, our current capital reserve fund. But I think that by getting aggressive and getting more, it's going to help us where we want to be and give us options. So, I don't know if I was clear enough of what I'm thinking, but
Do we have the ability to put in new classrooms without doing a full renovation? Like that, I know there's that like space off the 60s wing.
I don't know what you mean. Sorry.
Cove.
Not the Cove classrooms, that Cove area.
Yeah.
I thought we ruled that out.
You mean the one with the one where they have to replace the staircase? You're
Not at the
thinking-
end, like at the,
Oh.
there's like a little alcove. I don't know off the top of my head, I don't know how big that is or our ability to put something in there.
Well, that's why right now we don't have that ability because 750,000 will not build the classrooms.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I know.
off the side or anything.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm saying that if, you know, this addition, the renovation does not pass in March, I think that, you know, getting our capital reserve up as fast as possible this year and maybe next, you know, then we'll have to start doing classrooms only or something, because we're quickly running out of space over there.
But I think what you're saying kind of falls in line with doing like an if-then type of thing. 'Cause if we have this, we want to do this. If we don't have this, we want to do this type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with the capital reserve, we don't have to, we can grow the capital reserve and decide later what to do with it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's up to us as the school board, as the stewards of the capital reserve fund to decide what it's going to be allocated for. So we don't have to put that into a vote, into the warrant article and say,
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I mean more like the amount.
Well, yeah, I would, yeah.
oh, we don't need, oh,
Well, if
I
you
wouldn't-
wanted to end
yeah.
up putting 2 million into capital, you know, or the entire surplus into capital reserve, it would have to be in there.
right.
So that's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what, I think where I'm, in my mind, you know, it's going, you know, at least this 500,000 or more to put in there for the future.
Do we have to state an actual number on the warrant article, Jeff?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I can check with the DRA, but
I think it'd be good before the next vote, just
Yeah.
to see. That way it gives us choices of what we want come the mid-December.
yeah, they're pretty flexible, and that's what you did with the retained fund balance. You took max percent, but not a specific number.
All right. Megan, I don't know if you had any input to the discussion on around the capital reserve fund or anything in addition to that?
No, I don't have anything to add. I do appreciate the idea that you proposed. I think you're right. We do have to start thinking a little bit more aggressively or try to get more creative on how to build the funds if the addition does not pass.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Megan. All right, and then Article 8 is around the general acceptance of reports, which is pretty straightforward on what that one is every year. So these are the warrant articles, and again, these are outlining what they would be. So, you know, unless something, you know, a citizen's petition or a change in anything we're talking about, looks like 8 articles are what are up for vote. Definitely looking forward to filling in the X's and the dollars here so that we'll have a comprehensive overview for ourselves, the public, and you know, anyone else watching on what we plan on bringing forward in the warrant article. So, I don't know, anything else, Mr. Dowd or Mr. Thompson? Okay. All right. Next, we have policies, first and second readings. So, board members have 2 policies. Again, one is for second reading and adoption, and then the second one is for first reading. So, we'd like to review and discuss this and vote on this separately, please. First one is on EHAB, the data governance and security. This is one that we've had a couple discussions on. I'd like to open it up with that last Thursday, Ms. Tomaselli, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Giard, myself, did meet with a member of the community to go over this data governance, policy. Had a really good discussion, I believe. A lot of back and forth that was helpful, and just ironing out policy versus procedure, and understanding that there's a lot more work that does need to be done in the policy. But I'd say even more work has to be done in the procedure, and that's why through those discussions we did talk that this is an evolution. We're light years ahead where we were in 2019 when we introduced the data governance policy, but we know that there's a lot to get after in the procedure. So we walked away from that. I think could have probably talked a little bit longer during that meeting. The hour and some change went by really quickly. But again, good, healthy discussion. And I think one of the really good things is we do have this data governance committee that is meeting at least monthly, and with members of the public that are part of this, those that are, I'd say, very passionate about this policy. So, again, kudos and appreciation to community members and to the administration and teachers to be part of this. So I don't know if anybody from the policy committee wants to talk anything about this? Or
I do. I have a few comments on this one. So just for some clarification on what some of these items are, the information on cybersecurity has been added under definitions. I think that's under A. The previous policy did not recognize cybersecurity, so this is being added. Under section B, 1A, it notes, I wrote it down, but let's see if I can read my writing. Inventory shall include users of the applications, the provider, purpose, publisher, privacy statement, and terms of use. The addition of provider and publisher information is being rolled out by the district starting in January, so that's being added. And then under consequences, which is J, we are adding language to refer to the procedure EBH-R. So that kind of addresses some of the issues and concerns. But we did also talk about the fact that this is a ongoing policy that needs to be reviewed. Needs to be reviewed every year anyway. But the procedures need to be done, but the policy needs to be approved before we can get to the procedures. So
Yeah.
I did want to just make note of those things because they seem to be the things that were some of the things in question.
Yeah, I think one of the things we talked about in that meeting last week, we talked about that, at the end of the year, having a communication back to the board about what's happened in the year related to the data governance
Yep.
policy and procedures. Kind of an overview of if there's violations or if there's things that we need that are ongoing, like additional trainings, that kind of thing. So we'll be looking for that in the procedure when that comes up.
Yep.
So.
And Nicole did talk about doing just that, so.
Okay, great. So I'm looking, again, if there's anything else, but if not, I'm looking for a motion to adopt EHAB, Data Governance and Security.
So moved.
Moved by Jason,
I'll second that.
Aaron. Any discussions around EHAB?
Yeah, I just want to second basically what you said about the conversation last week and the meeting last week. We definitely came away from that meeting knowing that it's going to be an evolution year after year on this, and it's going to be ever growing. And kudos to the community members who have reached out and participated in this, but also kudos to our entire staff that continues to adjust, learn, train, and develop their knowledge about what to do and what not to do. As the years go on, new websites come up, new training material comes up, new educational tools come up, and they're eager to try to be the first to use that. With the training and with everything that we learned and everything that's going to come from the procedure, we know that our teachers are doing the right thing, and we're going to help to train them to make sure that we continue to do the right thing. So just kudos to the staff.
Yeah, and for me, I would rather stay away from getting more specific in the policy when it changes so quickly year after year, where I'd rather have a procedure that is malleable and that we can change over time, and also that it would then end up pushing more towards the board making decisions on a regular basis as opposed to the superintendent that's more capable of doing that and making the decisions quickly as things come up, as they're going to. So.
I just think that, again, back to the procedure, but back to, it's a digital age now where it wasn't even, 10, 20 years ago. So, a lot of people, myself, others, we got to retrain ourselves to understand what is, we may not understand in security really is, and lean in on the tech team to help us. So I know that's going to be part of the plan and part of the procedures going forward. So I appreciate the effort, a lot of time in this, and really retraining a lot of our brains on how we think about data and the systems that we use with that. So I'll ask Melissa if she can take a roll call on this.
Sure. Mr. Giard?
Yes.
Dr. Hubner?
Yes.
Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Pellegrini?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries to adopt.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
All right. Next is first reading of GBCD around background investigation and criminal history records check. I know there's been some discussion in the community and amongst the board members around this one. Wondering if anybody would like to speak to this one. Nudge, nudge.
Do we know what the changes were from the previous policy?
Sorry.
Do we know what the changes were from the previous policy? Like there's a previous policy for this, like what's been added in?
The changes in GBCD were pretty substantive. The last revision was in 2007. And the impetus specifically for GBCD, and we're also looking at the volunteer policy sort of in tandem with this one, but the impetus is that the FBI is conducting audits of local school districts that have the background check technology that the Hsd School District has. Not many school districts in the state of New Hampshire do background checks in the superintendent's office. They're typically done at the police station. And so we are anticipating that we will be audited by the FBI. And one of the things that they look for is up-to-date policies around criminal background checks and procedures as well. So the policy updates sort of reflect the most recent changes in the statute that, and so if you want, Dr. Hubner, I can send you the previous GBCD so you can do a side-by-side.
Well, it's in here in
And you have the,
Yeah, it was more I wanted, a general idea of what the impetus was for the change and the substantive changes.
I believe was this the one, Melissa, that we were adding we added some language about the designee for.
Yes, this is the exact policy, and I believe that's the second to last page. Page 7 of page 8.
Yeah, so I believe the original said, I don't know if I can find it in there, said something about, I think it said like law enforcement or something of that nature. And so we did, because we have that in-house, we did change that, added some language in there to include
Yeah, Erin, it's
personnel.
page 6, item number 1. It's the second paragraph where we've added that the fingerprints may be taken by a qualified law enforcement agency or an authorized employee of the district's SAU.
Right.
I think that's what you're looking for.
Yeah,
I'm having
yeah.
a hard time hearing.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Okay.
Thank you, Megan.
Do we pay for, and I know this isn't the policy, do we pay for volunteers' record checks, or do they have to pay for it themselves?
The district pays for both volunteers and for substitute teachers and paraeducators.
Excellent.
But there is a fee that's charged by the state of New Hampshire.
Yes.
that we are very happy to pay in order to get volunteers and substitutes into the building.
Agreed.
So.
Now, is there anybody that would be coming into the school on a regular basis that wouldn't fall into this policy that we know of?
Well, the other piece is what is still at the policy level is IJOC, which is the volunteer policy, and that's going to get into that designated volunteer, and then all of the procedures or all of the policy considerations related to volunteers specifically.
Yeah,
this is
so
more
if-
the background check piece.
So if a person's coming in wants to help out with a craft fair, they wouldn't have to get cleared. But if they become a regular person in the school, they would have to be.
That will be hopefully cleared up once we review the other policy,
Okay.
the designated volunteer, because that, when we started going through that, it was kind of, I wouldn't say all over the place, but there was a lot of different conflicting things and things that didn't really make sense. So we're going to try to rein that in a little bit and define what those things
Okay.
mean so that it's
Okay.
more clear.
No, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we tabled that one while we work on making sure we do that right.
I'll make a motion to move policy GBCD to second reading.
I would second that.
Second by Dr. Hebner. All right. Any more discussion on GBCD?
Nope.
Melissa, would you mind taking a roll call?
Sure. Mr. Giard?
Yes.
Dr. Hebner?
Yes.
Ms. Malcolm?
Yes.
Mrs. Pellegrini?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries to move to second read.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. And board comments, correspondence. Mr. Hubner. All right. Megan, do you have any?
I don't.
Yes, I do. So on Saturday, so I had been asked to speak at the New Hampshire PTA convention, talking about how to engage students in the PTA. So I contacted Sarah Wisecover, because her and Molly Freelick run the PTSA Kids. And so Sarah and I presented together to a group of PTA members that are looking to potentially create a PTSA out of their PTA. We had a really great discussion, and we were really able to brag about our students and all the work they do, and how much we enjoy working with them, and how to kind of get them engaged in things to keep them motivated. And it was great. It was an excellent experience. So it was nice to be able to show off a little bit too.
Nice.
So thank you to Sarah as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Wisecover. Anything else, Aaron?
I think the only other thing, I don't know if that's under correspondence or if it's under old business. I was going to ask about the buses, because I got a message from Pinkerton about the Hampstead buses, but I didn't see anything else or hear anything else. And I haven't seen anybody or heard anybody complaining, but
I'm hoping Mr. Thompson has something in his superintendent's
I do,
report.
yeah. I'll
okay,
address
okay.
it. Yeah.
All right. For myself, I attended Veterans Day celebration during school, which was really fun, and to see. I think what I appreciated most, and I'm seeing it more, I've heard a lot more about it, is getting the students to run the show. So the students ran it. The students organized it all. They got the people here. They printed off materials. They sat people. They announced everyone as it, different parts of the agenda. So, and then I appreciated that our very own SRO spoke to the students about, and his message was around, while yes, veterans have given a lot, he also wanted to show appreciation for those that are here at home, supporting those veterans, the wives, the mothers, and family. So it was a really good message from our SRO. And then I attended the next day, the Veterans Day celebration. I was here. That was also really good to see who was here, who came here. And I'd say a pretty large turnout. It was one of the larger turnouts I remember in the last 5-10 years of coming here. let's see, Mr. Thompson and I met with a newly elected representative of the State House, Lily Walsh, to extend, our relationship, create a relationship, so that if there's anything going on at the house, we need to separate fact from fiction, as we know there's a lot out there in the world of fact and fiction, to come back and find out what's really going on in our school systems. So we started that, and we offer that to anybody who's been voted in for the House, for the state, or the Senate. Construction committee, we've heard about a lot. We've met last week, we're going to meet this week, or we just met this week, we're going to meet next week again. So it's heating up. A lot of information as we talk about this renovation that we've been continuing talking about for the last, seems like forever. And then lastly, again, Mr. Thompson and I did attend the Board of Selectmen's meeting. Really good discussion, really good information, really good sharing out with the town, and just continuing to build that relationship, as it's really all under one umbrella of Hampstead. So, been a busy couple weeks.
I was going to say, we spent a lot of time together.
We spent a lot of time together the last 2 weeks. So, I think that's all I've got. So at this point, turn this over for consent agenda with Mr. Thompson of the personnel report.
Yeah, all right. There are no items for the personnel report. So moving on to the superintendent report. Again, since our last meeting, it's interesting, board members stole a lot of my thunder. So just, the Veterans Day celebration, it absolutely is, I think, one of my favorite times of the year. Just, to have the men and women who have served our nation come in and serve as examples to our students is just, it's really pretty profound. And I was really impressed with the turnout, as David said, of the celebration, the community celebration here on the 11th. We had, students from the middle school choral program who just did an excellent job. We also had, I think, all of our state elected officials were here. So it was just nice to really come together as a community to celebrate our veterans and to be able to do it here at the school, and to be able to utilize the new broadcasting equipment that the school has. We're very excited we brought on board a new member of our tech department. Caesar Hilton is one of our new network administrators. In talking with members of the tech team, is hitting the ground running and doing an excellent job. It's nice to be able to get that position filled. We still have a tech assistant position to fill, and so if anyone out there is interested in working in a school and really making a difference, please go to AppleTrack, talk to myself, talk to Mr. Dion, the director of technology. We'd love to round out the team, so to speak, would be great. We recently sent out a communication survey to parents. Priority 3 in the strategic plan looks at improving communication. I was just checking, we have 62 respondents, which is decent, but it would be great if we could hear from everybody. Just a little snippet of some of the things that I'm seeing in the survey. I think people appreciate the weekly emails that come from the principals. If you have a child in more than one school, it can be a little daunting. You get a lot of communication from the school. So how can we do a better job of maybe organizing that, perhaps on the website, a principal section where we have messages that are sent out. Same with the superintendent, certainly something we could look at. We get some great feedback as we look to develop and deploy a new website. So there was definitely a lot of feedback about the website. And then also looking at social media use. That's definitely something that we want to sort of improve our presence on social media. And I thought it was interesting, the district has a Facebook account and we have a Twitter account. When we ask folks what they use, number 1 is Facebook, number 2 is Instagram. In fact, very few respondents, and again, we've only had 62, indicated that they're on Twitter. So it's something that we may want to take a look at moving forward. Maybe we're better served by maybe exploring Instagram. So also, Aaron had mentioned, you talked about the PTSA. I just want to make a plug for the PTSA. The support that they provide to the school, it's just, they really partner with the school, to ensure that kids really have access to the educational program here, whether that's their enrichment classes, whether it's field trips, helping to organize volunteers. So if you have not had the opportunity, and this goes for not only our parents, but our staff and our students as well, if you have not had the opportunity to sign up for the PTSA, please do so. It takes all of 3 minutes. You can go to the PTSA website. You can sign up through PayPal. It's a very easy process. And then lastly, the bus issues, I thought we had a good handle on it. We were on track to be fully staffed. That is no longer the case. The driver that we were supposed to be onboarding, there's been a delay in the onboarding of that individual. We still expect that to happen. It's just not happening at a pace that we would like. And then we have a new vacancy for a driver. We did get a resignation of a driver. So that place that we were in at the beginning of the year, being down two drivers, that's where we are again. I think there's at least a little benefit, but Mr. Dowd may have an update.
I do.
All right.
We're still down 2 drivers. We do have 1 additional driver shadowing this week, and we're expecting that next week, after the holiday, he should be able to be on a route, which would then still leave us just 1 driver short.
Yep.
There is a driver in the pipeline for that position, and that could potentially be early mid-January if everything works out well between training, testing, et cetera.
So we will be down 1 driver through December and into the new year still.
Correct.
Okay.
We are. And I appreciate the feedback. Parents have been reaching out with their concerns. Even this evening, I've received a phone call from a parent to just put an issue on my radar that hadn't been on there. And, as these come up, we meet every single concern that's brought to our attention. We go directly to the bus company. We have a conversation with them, and we brainstorm possible solutions. I know Mr. Dowd talks to the bus company regularly, so do I, and both of the building principals as well. I appreciate people's patience. As I've said before, I wish I had a perfect solution. Help is on the way, but right now I know it is a source of frustration for parents. So,
Have the cameras helped at all that have been installed?
Yes.
yes, they have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask that too.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that because I've seen a couple, I think I brought one to your attention, try to figure out what the steps were for them to follow up on people passing the bus.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're helpful both ways, right? Because oftentimes, or on occasion, the bus company will receive a report that someone ran the reds, because it's the reds you have to stop for.
Yep.
And oftentimes, it's the yellows, right? So it's helping to discern between true violations and those things that aren't a violation. So yeah, we've had a number of issues that have been brought to our attention, and the bus company and the police department has gone to the cameras for review. They definitely help.
Good.
Great.
Speaking of cameras and Instagram, does Bubbles the elf have an Instagram?
That's a good question.
I read something on Facebook apparently that Bubbles, as in his older age, is getting a little bit more difficult to work with. So it's actually quite funny. So
Yeah, and I'm hoping we
not
can
making any promises.
we can collaborate on some type of project for the holiday season. He may be difficult to work with, but some people say that about me as well. So together we might be able to pull something off. So, and then just lastly, I just want to, wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. It's so amazing to think this school year is flying by. Here we are at the end of November. So I hope that our staff and all of our families have an opportunity to get some rest and recharge, and then we're going to be back, and it's going to be December before you know it. So, and I'll entertain any questions that the board might have about any of the items that I discussed or any others that might be of interest.
I think the only one that I would bring up is, and I appreciate, the candor about the buses, so I appreciate that, is what we have in front of us, which is the facility study. I know that we had planned on having that tonight, but due to illness, the presenter was not able to make it. So we do have the study in front of us. I'm wondering amongst the board if it makes sense to go ahead and publish this ahead of the actual presentation, to the public, since we did pay for it. It is in its final copy. But I want to check with the board what their thought is on that.
I think it would be good for people to take a look at it before, like if they had questions or if they wanted to make public comment before he did present.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We can certainly make that available to the public.
All right.
And it would be helpful in advance of the meeting if there are specific questions that either the board had or community members. We can make sure that the consultants have those questions and can do a thorough explanation of.
No, that's not, now the next meeting is our long budget meeting, right? So they're not gonna present then.
Right now, they're tentatively scheduled for that next meeting, so.
Yeah, it's a big meeting.
Okay.
Because if not then it's going to be January before they present. Because we have our next meeting after that is the end of December, which is just after Christmas. Typically, we don't do it during the Christmas break.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that do take vacation that week. So,
Could we start it earlier and have him present at the beginning of the meeting? Like start the meeting at like 6:30 or something?
we can potentially do that. We can talk about that over the next, we want to, start a little bit earlier because it is a big meeting. Possibly do this at like a 6 o'clock or something. But
Yeah, that's fine with me.
I think it's also that if one reason we start at 7 o'clock is because people are coming home,
No, I
So
agree, yeah.
we would miss some time, but I know it's going to be a late meeting, so maybe we can talk about that and,
Yeah.
if we
Well,
want.
I also think at a certain point, like after 10 o'clock, people probably won't keep watching too, so.
Right. So, okay.
All right.
As far as what's in here, I think the only thing that for me that caught my eye and through discussion with you, Mr. Thompson, is, a lot of this is talking K through 8 only. So when the numbers are out there for people when they look at it, it doesn't talk about our pre-K enrollment as well. So I think board members to be mindful that when you see what the enrollment figures are, they are without our pre-K, which for those in special education of pre-K, we're legally obliged to support. So the numbers are higher than that. I think that's my first one that catches my eye when you talk about enrollment numbers. But there's definitely a lot of good information as just scanning through this right now. So good reading material.
Yeah, definitely. And what I appreciate about the report, and again, we're going to have the presentation, is, we do rely on NSDEC on an annual basis to provide us with enrollment information. Clearly, this report does a much more thorough, deep dive specifically for Hampstead. So I think it provides us a little bit more information than what we would typically get on an annual basis from NSDEC. And again, there are a variety of ways to look at enrollment, from projected enrollment, what we call school age enrollment, which is K through 8, and then total enrollment, which would include preschool. So you'll see that when you go through the report, you may see different enrollment numbers and you may have questions, and it really depends on where they pulled the data from. And I'd be happy to clarify and answer any of those questions that either board members or members of the community might have.
I do think it's super important that it does break down functional capacity versus what the state thinks is functional capacity, and lay out possible options going forward to meet the needs that we're going to have and the advantages and disadvantages. So if people have questions and they want to read it online, I think it'll be super helpful.
Start my car. It's cold out.
Anything else, Mr. Thompson?
The only thing that I failed to mention, again, the time kind of blurs a little bit. We did get our ranking for building aid was released at the last State Board of Education meeting. And Hampstead's overall ranking is 8 out of the total of, I believe there are 17 districts on the list. We should anticipate that based upon that ranking, we are not likely to get building aid. Now, building aid is such an interesting thing. It's such a long process that also involves, towns voting to approve warrant articles for building projects. So it's not out of the realm of possible, but I think for all of our planning purposes, it's prudent for us to not consider building aid as we move forward with this project. We will obviously learn where, this entire process shakes out after the March vote, because that is a step in the process for receiving building aid. Now, if we do not receive building aid, we are automatically on the list for the following year. So we don't have to reapply, because as I think the board's aware, the process for application is pretty significant. It's time intensive. We will remain on the list, and we'll be re-ranked.
So
Yeah.
we could rank higher, or we could rank lower?
We could rank higher, we could rank lower, and it's a rubric-based system. There's a little over 1,000 total points. We received a little over 500 points, and the category that really has the most significant number of points is our free and reduced lunch population. Ours is below 5%. It's a very low number in comparison to other districts. If you look at most of the districts that rank higher than us, many of them received either 100 or 200 points just for that category alone. So that hurts us on that rubric.
Now, we get re-ranked again next year regardless whether the warrant passes or not.
That is my understanding, but I can get clarification on that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ms. Thompson.
You're welcome.
All right, other business, old business. I think yours has been answered, right, Aaron?
It was.
nicely
And I
done.
didn't even ask Bob about it before, so glad you had that in your,
All right.
Not
There's
a
a reason
problem.
he's superintendent then.
right.
All right, we do not have a non-public tonight, so we are adjourning at 8:34, 21 minutes early, and I will take those 20 minutes for the next time we meet. Thank you all very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing everybody in December. All right, thank you, Megan.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.